Picture your phone screen at 11 o'clock at night. Not the content on it, just the screen itself. The glow. The way your thumb moves before your brain decides to move it. A notification slides in from the top. Then another. Your email app has a red badge you don't remember seeing before. There is a message in a group chat you muted 3 weeks ago. Somewhere in another tab, a video is still playing. You forgot you even opened it. You're not relaxing. You're not working. You're not doing anything you would later describe as meaningful. But you cannot stop. And the strangest part, you don't entirely want to. This feeling has a name, and it is costing you more than you think. Right now, the global job market is doing something that doesn't make sense on the surface. On one side, you have mass layoffs hitting tech, finance, media, and retail at a scale we haven't seen since the 2008 financial crisis. Hundreds of thousands of positions eliminated. Entry-level roles that used to absorb fresh graduates by the thousands are simply gone, or they've been restructured into contract positions with no benefits and no ladder to climb. The competition for what's left is ferocious. And on the other side, at the exact same time, millions of young professionals are voluntarily walking away from stable employment. Not because they found something better, not because they had a plan, but because they couldn't stay. The internet has a ready explanation for this. Corporations are toxic. The pay doesn't match the cost of living. There's no work-life balance, no psychological safety, no real path forward. And you know what? All of that is true. The structural problems in modern employment are real, documented, and worth being angry about. But today, we need to talk about the part of this story that doesn't make the headlines. The part that's harder to post about. Because it doesn't point at a corporation or a system or a policy. It points directly at something happening inside your own brain. And here's the thing I want you to hold on to before we go any further. There's one skill that completely insulates you from skill inflation, from AI displacement, from job market volatility, from the burnout cycle that is swallowing an entire generation. It is not a technical skill. It is not a certification you can earn in 6 weeks. We'll get there. But first, we need to understand what we're actually dealing with. Let's start with a researcher named David Levy. He works at the University of Washington, and for years he has been studying something most of us experience but very few of us can name. He noticed that people were becoming increasingly unable to sustain attention on a single task. Not because they lacked intelligence or motivation, but because the architecture of their digital environment had fundamentally changed what their brains expected from moment to moment. He called it popcorn brain. The image is precise. Think about the way popcorn kernels behave under heat, constant, rapid, unpredictable bursts. That's what a brain looks like when it has been conditioned by an environment that delivers stimulation in short, high-intensity bursts with almost no delay between them. The brain stops expecting silence. It stops expecting slowness. It begins to experience the absence of stimulation not as peace, but as deprivation. Now, think about what TikTok actually is from a neurological standpoint. It is a delivery system for dopamine hits engineered to arrive every 8 to 15 seconds. Every scroll is a tiny gamble. Every new video that captures your attention is a small reward. Every skip is a rejection that makes the next hit slightly more anticipated. The platform is not designed to entertain you. It is designed to train your brain to need it. And this isn't a moral argument. The engineers who built these systems were not villains. They were optimizing for engagement, which is what they were paid to do. But the side effect, the thing nobody put in the terms of service, is that after months and years of this kind of consumption, your brain's baseline expectation for stimulation gets recalibrated at a level that ordinary life simply cannot meet. So when you sit down at a desk at 9 in the morning and open a spreadsheet that needs 4 hours of uninterrupted attention, something strange happens. Your brain registers it not as a task, but as a threat. The slowness feels wrong. The silence feels wrong. The absence of novelty feels wrong. And your body responds the way it responds to any aversive stimulus, with restlessness, irritability, and an overwhelming urge to escape. This is not a character flaw. It is not laziness. It is not a generational weakness. It is an engineering problem. Someone spent billions of dollars and millions of hours engineering your brain to feel exactly this way. Understanding that doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does change how we approach fixing it. Meet Marcus. He's 26, works in marketing analytics for a mid-sized company, and by most external measures, his job is fine. The pay is livable. His manager isn't cruel. The work isn't dangerous. But Marcus spends most of his workday in a state of low-grade misery that he struggles to explain to people who ask why he's unhappy. The reports he needs to build take 3 to 4 hours of concentrated effort. The data sets are complex. The insights don't come quickly. And every time he sits down to do that work, his brain starts sending signals that feel like an alarm going off in a quiet room. Check your phone, refresh your email, open a new tab, find something, anything, that provides a faster return. So Marcus does what millions of people in his position do. He starts researching alternatives. He watches YouTube videos about people who left corporate jobs to become freelancers. He reads income reports from creators who claim to make 6 figures working from a beach in Bali. He takes a course on AI content tools. He builds a plan. And after 8 months of preparation and one particularly bad performance review, he quits. For about 3 weeks, everything feels perfect. He wakes up without an alarm. He works from coffee shops. He takes calls on his own schedule. He has 4 different AI tools open at once, a Notion board tracking his projects, 2 browser windows and about 20 tabs, a Slack channel for one client, and a Discord for another. And he feels, for the first time in years, like he is actually alive. What Marcus doesn't realize yet is that he hasn't escaped anything. He has just changed the furniture. Here is what freelancing actually demands from a human brain, in the early months especially. It demands the ability to sit with uncertainty for extended periods without external validation. It demands the ability to do deep, focused work with no one watching, no structure enforcing the schedule, and no guaranteed reward at the end of the week. It demands patience with slow feedback loops, sending proposals that don't get answered, building a portfolio that nobody looks at yet, doing work that won't compound into income for months. In other words, freelancing demands exactly the neurological capacities that a popcorn brain has the hardest time maintaining. And this is where the 20 tabs become a symptom of something more serious. When Marcus switches between his AI tools, he tells himself he's being efficient. When he refreshes his email 14 times in an hour, he tells himself he's staying on top of things. When he opens a new browser window to research something tangentially related to a project he hasn't started yet, he tells himself he's doing research. But what he's actually doing is feeding the same loop. High stimulation, rapid tweaking, no deep focus, just the dopamine-seeking behavior that made corporate work feel unbearable, now repackaged as entrepreneurship. You didn't leave the trap. You redecorated it, and then the market lands on top of this. Here is the math that nobody in the quit your job and go freelance content ecosystem wants to say out loud. The same technology that made freelancing accessible to Marcus also made it accessible to everyone else. The AI tools that let a non-designer produce decent graphics, let a non-writer produce serviceable copy, let a non-editor produce watchable video. Those same tools are in the hands of every other person who had the same idea Marcus had. A Brookings Institution analysis of freelance platform data found that freelancers in AI-exposed categories, copy editing, proofreading, writing, image creation, saw new contracts drop by roughly 2% and total earnings fall by about 5% in the months following the release of tools like ChatGPT. And strangely, it was the more experienced freelancers, the ones charging higher rates, who fell it hardest, not the beginners. A separate study out of Harvard and Imperial College London, tracking 2 million freelance job postings across 61 countries, found that within 8 months of that same launch, graphic design work had shrunk by 17% and writing work had fallen by nearly a third. The supply of people offering these services expanded dramatically. The demand did not keep pace, which means the price per unit of work has dropped and the competition for each individual project has intensified. What AI actually did to the freelance market wasn't democratize opportunity. It democratized competition. There's a certain type of content creator. You've seen this person who posts screenshots of their monthly income, shows their laptop in an aesthetically pleasing workspace, and teaches courses on how to build the same income they have. What the screenshots don't show is the 18 months of zero income before the business became viable. They don't show the client projects taken at rates that work out to $4 an hour when you account for the time spent pitching. They don't show the periods of financial stress, the health insurance gap, the tax bill at the end of the year that nobody warned you about. The gig economy didn't create opportunity for everyone. It created competition for everyone. And those two things look identical from the outside until you are 18 months in and your savings account is empty. Marcus is now 8 months into his freelance career. He is working harder than he ever worked in his corporate job. He is working less predictably, with less income, and with significantly more anxiety. He is waking up at 3 in the morning running mental calculations about whether his pipeline of potential clients will convert before his runway runs out. His popcorn brain, the one that couldn't tolerate 4 hours of Excel, is now being asked to tolerate months of grinding uncertainty with almost no dopamine hits along the way. Client dry spells don't produce stimulation. They produce silence. And silence, to a brain trained on constant stimulation, doesn't feel like quiet. It feels like catastrophe. So the brain does what it has been trained to do. It seeks an exit. It starts scrolling again. It starts consuming content about other income streams, other business models, other escape routes. The productive hours shrink. The anxiety expands. The work that actually needs to happen, the slow, boring, unsexy work of building a real client base over real time, keeps getting deferred in favor of activity that feels productive but doesn't compound. And eventually, Marcus burns out. Not dramatically, not with a breakdown or a crisis. Just quietly, gradually, the energy runs out. The enthusiasm that felt so real in month 1 becomes impossible to locate in month 8. He takes a contract position through a recruiter. It pays less than his original job. He has a gap on his resume he doesn't quite know how to explain. And he has a clarity about himself that he didn't have before, though not yet the understanding of what to do with it. The freelance battlefield isn't more free than the 9-to-5. It's just differently brutal. And a brain that can't sustain attention will lose on both terrains. So what is actually going on here? Underneath the job hopping, underneath the burnout, underneath the quit wave and the freelance trap and the skill inflation, what's going on is an attention crisis. And we keep misdiagnosing it as a career crisis, which means every solution we reach for makes the underlying problem worse. When we tell Marcus his problem is his toxic corporate environment, we send him to freelancing, which demands more sustained attention, not less. When we tell him his problem is that he needs better skills, we send him to courses and certifications that add more stimulation and more tabs without building the foundational capacity he actually needs. When we tell him his problem is motivation, we send him to motivational content that provides a short hit of inspiration and then evaporates when the actual work begins. None of these interventions touch the root. B.J. Fogg at Stanford has spent years studying why behavioral change is so difficult, and one of his core findings is this. When a behavior keeps failing, the instinct is to blame the person. We tell ourselves we need more willpower, more discipline, more motivation. But Fogg's research suggests that when a behavior consistently fails across a population of motivated, intelligent people, the problem is almost never the people. It's the environment. It's the design. The attention economy was designed to capture and hold your focus for commercial purposes. That design is working exactly as intended. And the side effect of that design is a generation of people whose brains have been tuned to a frequency that makes deep, sustained, voluntary attention genuinely difficult to maintain. Willpower is not the answer to this. You cannot out-discipline an environment that has been professionally engineered to defeat your discipline. What you can do is change the environment. And more fundamentally, you can understand what you're actually trying to rebuild. Here is the open loop I planted at the beginning of this. The one skill that insulates you from skill inflation, from AI displacement, from job market volatility, from the burnout loop, it is not a technical skill. It is not something a course can give you. And here is what it is. It is the ability to direct your attention deliberately, voluntarily, and for extended periods of time toward one hard thing, and to stay there long enough to become genuinely good at it. Newport calls this deep work, the capacity for focused, uninterrupted cognitive effort on tasks that push your abilities and create real value. Newport's argument, and the evidence increasingly supports it, is that deep work is becoming simultaneously rarer and more economically valuable. As attention fragments across a population, the people who maintain the ability to focus deeply become disproportionately productive, disproportionately skilled, and disproportionately difficult to replace. This is the one skill that AI cannot replicate because AI does not have a hard time focusing. AI does not get bored. AI does not need to rebuild a neurological habit of sustained attention. That capacity, the human capacity to choose to go deep, to stay with difficulty, to resist the pull of easy stimulation, is precisely what makes you irreplaceable in a world where the surface-level outputs of intelligence are increasingly automated. And here is what rebuilding this actually looks like, because it is not romantic and it is not quick. It starts with environmental design, not willpower. You do not try to focus harder in the same environment that has been trained to scatter your focus. You change the environment first. Phone in another room. Single tab. Define time blocks with a hard start and a hard stop. Not because these are productivity hacks, but because your brain needs to relearn what it feels like to be in a low-stimulation environment without interpreting that as an emergency. It continues with tolerance training, which sounds clinical because it is. You practice sitting with boredom for slightly longer than is comfortable. Not forever, not for 4 hours on day one, but for 20 minutes without an exit, then 30, then 45. You let your brain produce the discomfort of understimulation and you don't immediately resolve it. Over time, not weeks, but months, the brain's baseline expectation for stimulation recalibrates downward. The silence starts to feel less like deprivation and more like space. And it culminates in the discovery that Newport describes, and that anyone who has done serious deep work will confirm, that the state of sustained, voluntary focus produces its own reward. Not the quick hit of a dopamine spike, but something slower and more durable. The satisfaction of having gone somewhere difficult and come back with something real. That feeling compounds. And once your brain knows it's available, it starts to want it. Come back to that phone screen. 11 o'clock at night. The glow. The thumb moving before the brain decides. The job market is going to keep changing. AI is going to keep advancing. The freelance landscape is going to keep getting more competitive. The economic forces shaping all of this are real, and they are largely outside your control. But your attention is not outside your control. It has been shaped by your environment, which means it can be reshaped by a different environment. It has been trained by a system designed for someone else's profit, which means it can be retrained for your own. The generation that learns to do this, that rebuilds the capacity for deep, sustained, voluntary focus in a world designed to prevent it, will have something that cannot be inflated away, cannot be automated, cannot be competed away by a million other people using the same tool. It is not a sexy answer. It does not fit in a 15-second video. It does not come with a screenshot of an income report. It is just the ability to sit with one hard thing long enough to become genuinely good at it. That's it. That's the whole answer. And the next time you feel that pull, the hand reaching for the phone, the new tab opening before you decided to open it, the urge to escape the slowness of something real, you don't have to fight it. You just have to recognize it for what it is. Not a signal that something is wrong with the work. A signal that the work is exactly right. That it's hard enough to matter. That your brain, trained for speed, is being asked to do something that speed cannot do.